The Odd Pod. Odd Pod. Hello and welcome again to the Odd Pod. Don't forget the Chris Williams Odd Pod is free to download from manxradio.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. Because we've recently remembered the fallen, I thought it was time to raid the archives again and fumble through the miles and miles of open reel tape for an episode of Kelly's Eye featuring Peter Kelly and our late great David Collister, which was first broadcast in May of 1992 on Manx Radio. And today we take a closer look at the Douglas War Memorial.
Peter, what's Kelly's Eye looking at today?
Looking up today, David, against the sky, blue sky, looking at a man. He's all alone up there, looks rather cold, he looks petrified in fact, because the man is a statue, and the statue is that of a man in full battle dress of a soldier.
If we tell our listeners we're opposite the Villa Marina, they've got it in one.
Well, hopefully they have. We're looking at the Douglas War Memorial. This
would be a First World War memorial, yes?
Well, initially, obviously, as with most war memorials on the island, erected during the 1920s. They took a few years because, of course, people donated money. They weren't paid for by the corporation or the commissioners. This one at Douglas, in fact, cost £3,276, which was raised by public subscription. So it was there for the First World War, and unfortunately, of course, the Second War came along, and so there was space, and around the base you'll see 1939 to 45, 39 to 45, whereas the names on the centre part are from the First World War, and there are more names, you'll notice, from the First World War than the Second.
It's granite, yes?
It's granite. You can see a sparkle in the stone. It was imported, and it's a sort of, I suppose, a 20s style of architecture, really, the way it's a bit like a skyscraper, the way it steps in and goes up. Designed by a gentleman called Ewart Crellin. Now, not many people have come across Ewart Crellin. He was Manx. He was born in 1887 and he died in December 1950. Now, he served his articles with a local firm called Horrocks and Lomas, who were architects in Douglas. And he set up his own practice in 1936. He had an office both in Douglas and in Ramsey. He did quite a few houses, I think, around the Ramsey area. Anyway, he joined the Royal Engineers. He was with them during the war, but unfortunately was not a well man, and in 1942 had to come out, and then went to work for just a year with a firm called Sir John Brown and A.E. Henson and Partners, who were in Northampton and also in London, but again, after ill health, he was only with them a year and had to retire.
Would he have drawn the figure at the top, or would a sculptor have made that?
Well, he would have drawn it in the sense of, right, this is a soldier in full battle dress, which I must admit, not having been round in the First World War, whenever I've looked at him, I've assumed by the way he's got his tin helmet on that he was a Second World War soldier, but I'm sure there are people more knowledgeable than me on such matters. No, he was carved not by the same firm who did the War Memorial. That was Thomas Quayles of St George's Street, a firm which in fact existed from about 1863 through to 1986. They did the War Memorial itself. They carved the names, but up at the top, Harry Hems from Exeter, at the behest of Quayles, carved a figure. Now, Hems had been on the island before because they did the figure of Christ on the crucifixion alongside St Matthew's Church. And Ewart Crellin designed one other war memorial on the island, and that's up at Luzerne. If you look at that, that also has a soldier on it. In fact, I think he has his head bowed and he's leaning on the butt of his gun. But again, in similar battle dress to what you see here in Douglas.
Well, I suppose it is taken rather for granted now here, but there are many tragic stories written into the stone there.
Well, there are indeed, and I think a lot of people go past it and sort of say that is the war memorial, but of course the names on there are not of those who gave up their lives from the island. That's from Douglas alone. The National War Memorial, of course, is the one out at St John's, and so when you look at that and think of the names, then you realise the number of sons of Douglas that was lost during both wars.
The Odd Pod. Odd Pod.